Brennan, Kevin Nestor, rocking with you on the Lynchburg Hornets Sports Network.
Dude, I think they're.
Oh, he's saying no, comma, heard, play by.
Oh, that's what.
Playoffs under the light in the Hill City. It's the ODAC Quarterfinal, and the Lynchburg Hornets play host to the Royals of EMU on Schellenberger Field. Joe Brennan joined alongside Evan Gates, Kevin Nestor, in which should be a phenomenal game to get us kick-started for postseason play here in Central Virginia.
Tell you what, it's become an expectation to see postseason play on Schellenberger Field, and especially throughout the ODACs, potentially into the NCAA tournament. A great chance for Lynchburg to tee off against EMU in their first game of the ODAC tournament, and this is, by the way, a rematch of last year's ODAC tournament quarterfinal.
Yeah, and you can feel the energy for both of these teams coming into this game. Pre-game warm-ups, both squads amped, ready to get after it. It's going to be a fun 90 minutes here on Schellenberger.
These two teams quite familiar with one another. As you said, Evan, a rematch of last year's ODAC quarterfinal. These teams also already met during the regular season on this turf. It was a 6-0 victory for the Lynchburg Hornets. But if you go all the way back since 1999, EMU is 21-3 against the Lynchburg Hornets, with that sole victory coming back on October 2nd, 2002. However, they did tie last season in Harrisonburg. That was one of the more peculiar games we've seen of Lynchburg soccer, where the Hornets outshot the Royals 20-1, but it ended in a 0-0 draw. It's that same keeper between the pipes in Aldridge, who's someone that you've always got to have your eye on, Evan.
If you're a Royals fan, you feel like that's the type of scenario you want in a game like this, because you know Lynchburg's offense is just firing at such a high rate, top 10 in goals per game in the nation, and Arledge is going to have to be a key piece to victory tonight.
Yeah, you talk about the goals per game. Kevin, this has been one of, if not the most prolific offenses in Division III, and when you mix that with the under half a goal against average this season, it has been the perfect cocktail for Yeager and company.
Yeah, absolutely. Numbers usually tell you the story, but you look at Eastern Mennonite's numbers, those aren't bad numbers by any stretch of the imagination. But you're looking at a team in Lynchburg that has so many top 10 categories, not in the conference, but in the country. This team has been so good this year, and they're just now kind of feels like hitting that fire piece. They're just now getting their feet back under them, ready for a playoff push, which is crazy to say considering they've only dropped one game on the slate this year.
This is an EMU team that barely squeaked into the postseason. A big-time victory against Averett in their regular season finale, mixed with a Shenandoah loss here on Schellenberger Field, gave them a tie against the Shenandoah Hornets, and that stronger non-conference slate gave them the ultimate edge. It is a team that can be a little bit sneaky, but they're going to have to battle, as we talked about, one of the best teams on both sides of the ball across the entire country. And a guy that really embodies that for Lynchburg, Evan, is William Casey.
Absolutely, and the center backs have been sensational all year long. You don't necessarily need to advertise them any longer because Hornets fans have already become so accustomed to seeing them on the field for all 90. Casey and Velasquez, the two to watch, but you feel like William Casey is getting involved on that offensive side. And when you have 4 goals already this season, that's a positive sign.
Meanwhile, for the Royals, this is an offense that you certainly can't sleep on, and Toki is someone that really embodies that for their squad. 6 goals, 4 assists this season. He's the team leader, Kevin, with 16 points.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the stats, and it kind of tells you the story. He leads the team in goals, assists, points. He's been their guy. When the going gets tough, he's the one they rely on. We expect to call his number quite a bit tonight, but he's got a tough matchup tonight going up against this really, really good back line for the Hornets.
I mean, Evan, when we take a look at EMU coming in, trying to play upset and spoil one of the best Lynchburg seasons in recent memory, what do the Royals need to do in order to walk away with a victory?
It starts with energy because, Joe, you look back to how they got here in that win against Averett. They were down 1-0 in the 80th minute. They scored 3 times in the final 10 minutes to even get to the ODAC quarterfinals. You feel like if you have that trust in your teammates, that's the start. But it also involves the first 15 or 20 minutes because if you get off to a slow start and the Hornets get up, they're really tough to score on.
And meanwhile, in the same beat, Kevin, you look at Lynchburg this season, the best start in program history since 2023, which I know doesn't sound like so long ago, but that was a phenomenal year for the Hornets. What's so awkward about that year for Lynchburg is they lost in the quarterfinal to a Hampton-Sydney team 0-1 in one of those more peculiar games like that regular season meeting between Lynchburg and EMU from a year ago where Lynchburg outshot them 23-5, but it was one shot on target. That was all it took for the Tigers. So how does EMU try and recreate that, but more so how does Lynchburg try and avoid that similar outcome?
Yeah, well, for Lynchburg, it's just playing moment by moment. You can't get too ahead of yourselves in these moments. You know how good of a team you are. You've built that DNA and that pedigree all year, but you can't let that kind of decide the outcome of tonight's game because as soon as you do, you're going to let a team like EMU right in the door. For EMU, you're kind of banking on that. You're going to see how they play. You're going to try to crack that armor and that strategy a little bit here in this opening half. See if you can get under their skin a little bit, play them a little more aggressive than they're used to.
With that, let's walk you through the starting 11 for both sides, starting with the Lynchburg Hornets. It's Thomas Viscuso, the veteran keeper, in between the pipes. Then Torres, Casey, Velasquez, and Rouse make up that back line. Napier, Lopez, Correas, Viscuso in the midfield, and Wiley, Pask, and Andres Romero as the 3 forwards.
No surprises, right? And this is that part of the season where Coach Yeager certainly has the blueprint formed. You just want to keep that going into the postseason.
Now we look at the Royals starting 11 for tonight's quarterfinal matchup. It'll be Aldridge between the pipes, then Sebastian Acasella, Misha Artiga, Ortez, Torres, Riviera, Garcia, Kiernan, Bird, and the man that we highlighted in the open in Toki, Kevin.
Yeah, this is a team that has the same starting lineup as last time out against Averett. This is the 11 guys that came out and led that charge. Gates mentioned it with that 3-goal comeback. They put up 3 goals in less than 10 minutes to win that game against Averett. They trailed a majority of that game. These guys know what it takes to answer in the big moments.
And that victory snapped a 4-game losing skid, which was a part of that Lynchburg affair back on October 18th. And sometimes that's all it takes is one win to snap the drought and get the wheels going in the right direction. We'll see what we've got in deck. The first 45 coming up on Flo College when we come back from break. And we welcome you back into Schellenberger Field on the campus of the University of Lynchburg as the Hornets play host to the Royals of Eastern Mennonite. Joe Brennan, Evan Gates, Kevin Nestor alongside you on behalf of Flo College for the final game of tonight's quarterfinal round in the ODAC Men's Soccer Championship Tournament.
This is a Lynchburg team that wants to keep the ride going because when you look at the start of the season, they had so much momentum, and you feel like with just one loss on the schedule against Hampton, Sydney, the CMU team knows it's going to be a tall task tonight, but it's got to start early in this game, and the Royals feel like here after a little bit of heroics at the end of that game against Averett, they've got a shot in this one.
Absolutely, and that can be one of the most dangerous things for an underdog team is hope.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Eastern Mennonite, this is a team that you cannot count out. They only lost one game in the opening 2 months of this season. This team knows how to win. They know what it takes to get down and dirty, get gritty, and come out with these tight victories. I'm telling you, this team could really surprise a lot of people tonight.
Well, that's exactly what they're going to try and do on Schellenberger Field. It has the makings of a fun one, gentlemen. This is a Lynchburg squad that has only lost one game this season. They have not suffered defeat at home. A team that has been excellent on their own pitch so far this year. They have seemingly just rolled through the competition. It's a Hornet squad that has surpassed really all expectations coming into the season, which were rather high when you bring back that entire group of defenders, which had the third least goals scored against them in program history in 2024. They brought that whole group back, and they have looked just as good, if not better.
Well, and talking to some of those guys as well, it's not just the veterans they're bringing back. It's the fact they got to play summer ball together with LFC. And for a back line, which really relies on communication and chemistry, that's a main ingredient to success. You're seeing it in the postseason, and you understand why.
And it's not just about the 4 consecutive shutouts that they had to end the regular season. It's also the offensive production and the offensive production by committee that we've seen. Kevin?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, we talk about the record and how it usually tells the story. When we talk about team categories, team stat categories, you're looking at a Lynchburg team that leads in 14 out of 18 stat categories recorded in the ODAC. So when we talk about dominance as far as record, this team gets it done on the stat sheet as well.
And it has been a year with a very strong ODAC league as well. The play and the level of play has continued to rise, and the competition has certainly gotten stronger. Schools like Bridgewater, Virginia Wesleyan, Hampton, Sydney, all in the mix this year to come away with a championship.
And this is that time of the year where you got to throw the records out the window because a fresh tap to open the 90, it means that forget the regular season. We are into the ODAC quarterfinals.
Keaton Napier will get us rolling, playing it back to Velasquez, pushed up to Reed Rouse. He'll center it to Lopez Correas. Lopez Correas, a guy that didn't enter the starting lineup until mid to late October. Ever since then, he has been a crucial piece of this Lynchburg midfield.
You understand why with some of these midfielders, too, because you even watch the first 20 seconds of this game and just the crisp passing that you see, there aren't any hesitations, and that's just a product of playing together for quite some time.
And we talk so much about the veteran presence on this Lynchburg team, but you've also got 3 freshmen that are starting tonight for the Hornets, and that just goes to show you the mixture of talent that you've got.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for Lynchburg as well is you're going to see them run all night. They're going to keep fresh legs on the sideline. You're going to see a couple of subs in and out early, maybe some late in the first half. They're doing that by design. It's a Lynchburg team that likes to keep the fresh legs, the energy up throughout the entirety of the 90 minutes.
And it's a EMU squad that brings that as well. They make 3 freshmen look a little bit smaller. They've got 5, nearly half of their starting lineup, first-year players of the Royals. Lynchburg controlling the possession early on. A cross over to Lopez Correas. His quick trigger is corralled by Aldridge. And the first shot of the night is stopped by the brick wall.
Maybe that's a good save for the heart rate, too, because Andrew Arledge, by the way, has had 63 starts in goal throughout his EMU career. He's a senior trying to keep his season alive, and, those emotions can really weigh on you, especially in a game like this against a tough team.
Yeah, and I also think it kind of slows things down a little bit. See Lynchburg, they come out firing, they come out really fast. That's the tempo they like to play at. When you're able to shut down an attempt like that.
Andres Romero just barely snuck it through, pushed wide left.
As soon as you talk about how quick this team likes to play, you're going to see how fast they're getting out, they're gunning, they're shooting from everywhere here in the first 2 minutes of this game. This team likes to go fast. You're going to see that a lot tonight. Really good looks to start off this game. You got to think Lynchburg might be able to capitalize on one of those if they keep going at that rate.
Lynchburg continuing to apply a whole lot of pressure here in the early moments. Napier played it back. Now Viscuso patiently over to Velasquez. EMU starting to ramp up the pressure. That has oftentimes led to a couple of Lynchburg turnovers this season. When teams have played on their heels, especially in that forward line, and allowed Lynchburg to clear it, more times than not, Lynchburg has taken advantage.
Well, and Joe, this is an EMU team that almost looks like they're outmatched in terms of size and height in that midfield. And when you think about 50-50 balls in a game like this, it's going to come down to that physicality. So maybe capitalizing on a few turnovers wouldn't be a bad idea, especially early for the Royals.
Torres near side, guarded by Toki. Viscuso with a line drive over for Reed Rouse, contested by Derek Torres. Played out of bounds.
I like the pressure the Royals are coming out with. We haven't really seen that a lot, especially here at Schellenberg, and I think that attributes a lot to that unblemished record that we talk about at the top of the broadcast. For EMU, keeping the pressure on, especially on this back line and creating turnovers. Like Evan said, that's going to be the key, maybe cracking the armor of the defense just a little bit.
Well, Lynchburg has been perfect, 7-0 on their home turf. EMU sports a record of 3-4-3 when they play on the road this season.
And it's so tough to judge, right? Because like you said earlier, the ODAC is such a tough conference this year.
It really does have the makings for one of the most competitive conference tournaments we've seen in recent memory. And as an 8 seed, that's something that you love to see. And as a 1 seed, it might make you hold your breath a little bit.
That's right. And it comes down to playing 90 minutes at a time.
Evan Pask in the near side corner, working inside the 18. Crosses over to his right, lets it fly. And it looked like he might have gotten a piece of that one. Arledge with the punch out. Pask now will trot to the far side of the field and take the first corner kick of the day.
Yeah, beautiful job there on the shot. Lynchburg doing everything, getting everything they wanted there. You mentioned it, Arlen's able to get a fingertip on that, just deflect it just enough to get it outside the pipes.
Pask, far side post, William Casey. Can't put it on target.
And
the right idea.
Not afraid to search across the frame early in this game. We've already seen 3 shot opportunities where they're trying to test the other direction, and that just comes down to control. Feels like the Hornets in that attacking third are so poised.
Now Lynchburg trying to counter with some pressure of their own. Near side corner, played towards midfield. Casey with a header to send it back the other direction. Ortiz played up for Sebastian. Both teams pointing in different directions. The officials will rule in favor of the Royals. EMU sporting the royal blue and white kits today. Lynchburg in the all reds. Casey goes through for Napier, pushed up downfield for Andres Romero, but he can't handle it cleanly. Now Wiley applying some pressure with Ulrich. And Arledge's long ball turns into a turnover. Played out wide, Lopez Correas. Diving inside and a slow roller. Corralled by the senior keeper out of Fredericksburg, Virginia.
And that starts with Chris Wiley just narrowly being on sides and advancing that ball. And that discipline can really help you, especially when you get the numbers, because you know the speed that the Hornets have out wide.
And we saw both possessions, both from the Hornets and the Royals, start with the pressure in the back line. I think that's going to be a key to this game, seeing who can create the turnovers and get their offense in the best possible scenario. See Lynchburg trying to get out and running here.
And offsides call. Chris Wiley a little eager.
Almost felt like copy and paste that last sequence, and this time just an inch or two off. But you love that aggression, and especially to see Arledge already way outside of that 18-yard box, maybe getting him a little uncomfortable at this stage of the match. It's a good sign for the Hornets.
Viscuso with a takeaway, and he's got plenty of daylight. Little give and go right back to him. The freshman running downfield, looking for a cross. Tipped away by O'Royal. Pass now for Napier. Drilled one last game in the rain from about that spot, 30 yards out. That was one of the prettiest goals we've seen on this pitch in a long time.
Especially with the rain that night. That's going to be a memorable senior night for a long time.
Lopez Correas on the carpet, reeled in by Arledge.
Yeah, nothing's going to net from that possession, but something that we talked about to keep an eye on at the top of the broadcast, the passing, especially that transition passing that we've seen. Joe, you mentioned the give and go. I think that's such an underrated part of not only individual games, but as a team, what this offense can do to get each other involved.
A foot race for the Pearl, won by Torres. Lopez Correas with a beeline for possession. Working mano-a-mano. Beautiful ball laid out in front. Lopez Correas denied. Andres Romero recovers. Dancing towards the far corner. I mean, you talk about the difference maker that a keeper can have on a ball game. Right there, a beautiful display from Arledge.
When Lynchburg trying to go tic-tac-toe right up the middle, that was a beautiful ball because you feel like the Hornets, with those goals per game, right at 3 in that statistic. I mean, if you get shots, you're going to get the goals, and it just comes down to sequences like that. Gives you a lot of trust as a coaching staff.
And you got to think if Chris Wiley keeps putting those passes on a dime the way he is, one of these possessions is going to go their way. That's 2 really good looks that's been set up by Wiley.
And it really does seem as though they're going through Wiley and then wanting to attack to the middle and through the middle on the offensive end.
Well, and an interesting stat for Lynchburg, they have 6 players with 3 assists. So it's not just Wiley, as you see a little bit of physicality in that midfield to get a set piece, but I mean, there are so many Hornets that are lethal in preparing that attack. And when you get to the postseason, you see a few players maybe struggling a little bit going in. You need that variety.
Yeah, we've talked a lot this year about this team being able to do it by committee. And, Gage, you hit it perfectly right there. 6 players kind of in that range, being able to do whatever you need them to do. That bodes well for a good postseason.
Viscuso runs wide. It is wild and fascinating to see the difference in the offense from a year ago to this season. Last year's was certainly a productive offense. It wasn't necessarily a top-ranked offense like this year's is, and it really seems as though the off-ball creativity is something that has really brought this offensive group to the next level.
And, Joe, I think a piece of it is just having new faces involved because Zach Whelan, Monzi Shalita, these old-timers, the veterans, you think about those guys. They had their own blueprint for so many years with Lynchburg, and all of a sudden that creativity is sparked by a few freshmen in the lineup, like you said earlier. And when you add speed to the equation, gosh, it's such a tough problem to solve.
And you can look at it like if you've got Argentina playing and you take Messi off that squad, they're going to find different ways to score. I'm a big basketball guy. It's like when you took Carmelo Anthony off the Nuggets when he went to the Knicks. That was a great team that found different players found new ways to score, and that's really what we've seen this year, because oftentimes last year it was give it to Monty and get out of the way, or a set piece and let's find Wieland on a header.
Yeah, and what's so impressive about Lynchburg is, Evan talked about speed, but at the top of the broadcast we talked about the size mismatch. It's moments like this right here when you get one of these throw-in or the corner kicks in particular, we're going to see that size advantage play in Lynchburg's favor, but also the open field speed, something to keep an eye on.
The long ball from Velasquez is ultimately popped up towards midfield. Reed Rouse with a nice header to play it back to the two-time ODAC Defensive Player of the Year.
And you said it perfectly with that Argentina reference, too, because nobody's saying Argentina's a bad team if Messi's on the bench. And so all of a sudden, you have those different pieces. And for Lynchburg this year, you almost feel like they have re-strengthened this roster, even losing a few players in those All-America considerations.
And it was somewhat of a similar problem, if you want to say, quote-unquote, for EMU this year. I mean, you look at their top two leading goal scorers this season, and they're technically tied with – it's a three-way tie with – one more time. You look at two of their top three leading goal scorers, two of them are first years. This is a group that is – we talked about it in the open. They've got 5 freshmen in the starting lineup. They have added new faces into the mix, and they've been quite productive on the offensive end this season. And they've had to find new ways to create offense and really create a new brand of EMU soccer when you bring in this wave of freshmen. Evan Pass called off sides. Lynchburg sideline does not agree with the call.
And that was a nice run from the wider margins of the field. But, I mean, for this EMU squad, Jan Cesar had 2 goals against Averett. He has just 4 on the season. It doesn't have to be the main characters. And I think this team recognizes when you're trying to get a lifeline against a tougher team, it can be anybody out of the 11.
Yeah, and I like that. But I think it's safe to say that both of these teams sort of exceeded expectations coming into the year with the way that their younger guys stepped up. I mean, Lynchburg especially losing 2 of their top offensive playmakers, being able to come out and have one of the top 10 offenses in the country. EMU, the same boat, losing some guys, bringing in 3 first-year guys like Joe mentioned that's come in and really elevated the offense to get them into this postseason.
"15 of the 25 goals that EMU has scored this year have come from first-year players. This is a team that is certainly building that new style of Royal soccer and looking towards the future. And when you have that young talent and you're able to make an ODAC tournament in your first year of really rebuilding that new identity, that's a great sign for what's to come 2, 3, 4 years down the line.
And that's when you need the culture to sustain it, right? Because you have the talent, and it feels like for 60% of the goals to be freshmen, I mean, not only is the talent there, but it's also the buy-in to go to practice every day. You get those guys back, you're in a big spot.
Once again, a nice stop from Arledge.
It's Chris Wiley again being in the right place at the right time, right in that midfield area. You're going to see Lynchburg. We talked about it. That's going to be where they attack from. Really good opportunity there, and it's been that man kind of center of attention for the Hornet offense so far.
Well, 7 shots on the board right now and 6 saves for EMU. You got to think this isn't a sustainable way of playing soccer against Lynchburg for 90 minutes or maybe more. And so how does EMU get that possession in the midfield to just try to change the energy a little bit?
I think what they were doing extremely well was the pressure. Seeing a little bit of it here, but they created a couple of turnovers when they had the deep pressure kind of on the back line all the way. And that's what created those opportunities when they had a couple of chances on offense. Last few possessions defensively, they've backed off a little bit. You've seen Lynchburg get deep into EMU territory, be able to pick the pace up and get their own looks.
Napier will play it back for Casey. And another thing for this EMU program and Justin Carey at the helm in his 4th season, this is an EMU squad that has only gotten better and better each year under Carey's watch. He has been a big-time difference maker for this program a squad that, a year before he was here, this is a team that was winning 1-2 games in a season. And ever since he's been here, they have been 500 or better.
Well, and it's tricky, too, because a measuring stick for so many programs is in the postseason, and they haven't gotten past this ODAC quarterfinal round because they've had to play so many tough teams in that first game. And so maybe a little added incentive coming into this one for the Royals to say, hey, let's go into uncharted territory, and especially against one of the best teams in the nation.
And once again, we talk about the level of play rising in the ODAC at the top. It's throughout. It's all across the conference, and EMU is no exception whatsoever. This is a team that has gotten significantly better, a program that has gotten significantly better over the last half decade.
I really think that helps build that DNA that you talk about, especially coming into the season with so many first-year players. You want to have that established DNA for a team to be able to build on. And for this team with so many first years, an above 500 record, you're in the playoffs, you're playing the 1 seed. What can you do to kind of improve on what you've been building?
And it's not the conference, or the way the conference is built, is not always about the top teams. Everybody's big heckle with a lot of conferences, if you look at the power divisions, is, oh, this conference is top-heavy, while this conference is deep, and you have a harder strength of schedule competing in this one because we might not have 4 teams in the top 25, but we've got 8 teams in the top 40.
And you're seeing it more in the women's game as well. The ODAC in general just experiencing a little bit of a power surge in the middle of the conference, and that's why the ODAC tournament is that much more important, especially for teams that haven't guaranteed those NCAA bids early in the season. You got to win games against tough teams, and it starts by facing them in the regular season.
And I feel like, the ODAC sets a standard now. There's so many teams that you see build that out-of-conference schedule that has these ranked teams or the top echelon teams in the country. You have to be able to play them and play with them to be able to compete in the ODAC. You get a good baseline as to where your program's at in the first few weeks by scheduling teams like that, because that's just how good the ODAC is.
And with that, let's take a look at the other scores from today as they have now all gone final. Hampton-Sydney takes down Randolph. Bridgewater over Virginia Wesleyan, and Washington and Lee defeats Randolph-Macon. So it'll be Hampton-Sydney playing the Generals, and the winner of this contest goes on to play Bridgewater. That is a Bridgewater team that I think has surprised a whole lot of people this season.
And it's impressive because, we talk so much about the talent in the middle. You're still not seeing those huge upsets at the top, at least to start it. But Bridgewater, when you have a team like that that's surging, tough time to play them.
It's a team that went 6-2-1 in conference play this season, 11-4-2. And they defeated a Virginia Wesleyan team that had started the season atop the ODAC standings for the first few weeks.
Yeah, and if you're Bridgewater, you're not really going to sleep that good tonight. You got to win today. But based on whoever wins this, if Lynchburg wins, you're playing the 1 seed. If EMU wins, you're playing a team that you tied against in the regular season.
And Bridgewater is one of the 2 or 3 teams this year that Lynchburg did not play in conference. So the Hornets and Eagles have not gotten a look at each other.
Now, if they collide here in this ODAC semifinals, do you think that's almost better for Bridgewater? Because if you don't know what you're seeing yet, on one side, you can't go and worry about it, but you also got to make sure that you're prepared, and that's going to be a matchup that is very interesting because you kind of got to throw the stats out the window.
I don't think anybody's feeling safe at this point of the year.
Not at all.
I think everybody is on high alert. You know that the competition is good, especially right now it's been all the favorites. It's been the top seeds that have advanced, but in narrow fashion. Granted, Hampton-Sydney with a 4-1 victory, but Bridgewater and Washington and Lee both with 1-0 victories against quality squads with Virginia Wesleyan and Randolph-Macon. That's a Randolph-Macon team that Lynchburg got a look at in the regular season in Ashland, and that was a late-game heroic goal from the Hornets that ultimately catapulted them to a victory. And we've seen Lynchburg and Washington and Lee go at it. You just know that everybody remaining is the strongest of the strongest.
Yeah, and what's scary about that, sorry, Evan, but what's so scary about that is you look at a team like Hampton and Sydney, that was the biggest quote-unquote blowout win of the day so far. That's a team that, as the 3 seed, is one of the scariest. Lynchburg's only loss this year, that Hampton and Sydney team.
Andres Romero with the left foot. The freshman puts Lynchburg on top, 1-0.
You think about the rookie early in the year. He had a hat trick here on Schellenberger Field. He said, this is my moment and the start to a firepower season, and it's fitting. He punches the goal in to get the fun started in this ODAC quarterfinal. Look at the flick of the right foot. Finds the corner and tucks it away.
You mentioned the hat trick, Evan. That is his first goal since that contest back on September 13th. But the big players shine the brightest on the biggest stages.
Yeah, and you feel like you've got a second to talk. You know, we had a whistle player coming off the field. It looks like an injury. We thought we was going to have a talking piece for a second with the conference. Next thing you know, Lynchburg striking. That's how fast things can happen, especially in postseason play.
In the blink of an eye, Lynchburg seizes control of this contest in the 21st minute. Meanwhile, the Royals still hunting for their first shot of the night.
Joe, you told us earlier the fact that nobody's safe in this tournament. There's a reason it's surrounding Halloween, because this is that frightening time of the year. But when you see Lynchburg just convince you more and more every single minute that they own this fight, it has been just a thrill to watch for so many Hornet fans, especially believing in this young attack.
And obviously we gave a whole lot of credit to the goal, but how about the assist coming from Velasquez? That is his first assist this season. Already tabbed a goal in the neutral contest on the road against Messiah. Adds to his point total this season. And he's someone that has that ability to spark plug those plays with those long outlet passes at any given moment.
Didn't we talk on the outset of the broadcast about William Casey too and his offensive abilities? I mean, Benji Velasquez is a guy who's in the same boat. They're center backs, not necessarily expected to go out and get points, but they've done it at a high rate.
Evan Pask wants to go. Ricocheted off the shins of a Royal. And another corner kick awaiting for the Hornets. I mean, where do you think he learned it?
Goodness, that's right.
The mentor and the mentee, those are two guys that have such a strong connection. And last year, seeing Casey pull out as the Rookie of the Year alongside the two-time Defensive Player of the Year, I mean, you couldn't dream up a better tandem with those two center backs. Pask, line drive on a rope, tipped back. It'll fall in the breadbasket of Rouse. He'll chip it upstairs off the head of Velasquez. Arledge climbs the ladder and punches it out of play. Lynchburg will reset for another corner kick, their third today.
Had to reach for the cookie jar on that one, and it was a little deceiving how this ball just lingered in the air, and Arledge had almost overplayed it. We've seen him well outside the box early in this game and smart enough to get back, but another Lynchburg corner.
You know, if you're a Lynchburg fan and you were tuned in for the last game against Roanoke with the Clappers, they were actually handing them out before this game. So that is caught on. Someone else also has an air horn tonight. Certainly a rowdy environment.
Nobody's sleeping in the dorm.
Pask with the injection. Played out for Vasquez. He'll send it far side, Viscuso. And played out for yet another corner kick after it was deflected off of Acasello.
And I know Lynchburg has controlled majority of the time of possession, but I'm telling you, I've been really impressed with this Royals defense. They've had their back up against the wall majority of this game, giving up 9 shots already, only 1 going through. They've been doing a really good job, especially with the size disadvantage. On these corner kicks, these opportunities like this, they've been able to kind of silence them for now.
Pask with a corner. Played out. Lopez Correas gives it right back to him. A little give and go. Couldn't corral it cleanly. Now Vasquez gets tangled up. Goes through the legs for Saul Lopez Correas, and a nice slide tackle from Kiernan to break up the Lynchburg possession. Now Tohi trying to thread the needle, intercepted. And once again, it's a muck here in center field. Napier with some physical play. Gets it right back, pushing and shoving, and Derek Torres gets called for the whistle, and Lynchburg will be able to reset at midfield.
Tell you what, Oliver Rivera almost had an open avenue right front and center of that attack, but EMU just couldn't get the pass off because Lynchburg's defense was swarming in that midfield, and that's the urgency you want if you're Coach Yeager. Just trust that if you get the ball now, you don't even have to worry about defending the next pass.
And I think Evan said it best when he talked about the physicality going on in midfield. And you're starting to see that pick up. As tensions get a little bit higher, the energy gets a little bit higher, and we get closer to the end of this game, I think it's only going to get more and more sweet to watch. As both of these teams starting to get a little chippy out there, it's going to be fun to see the aggressiveness pick up.
Near side, Hector Ortiz. Lynchburg with a takeaway. Quick touches from the Hornets. Over for Andres Romero, right back Lopez Correas. Tried to use the eyes in the back of his head, but no peripherals right there.
I like that one, Joe. We got to give you a little bit of credit.
We're trying out new stuff tonight.
That's right.
Playoff time might not be the night to do it, but if he's trying it, I might as well.
Lynchburg hasn't tried too much. I think the same recipe has been just fine. It's been home cooking so far, and for a Hornets team that, you know, in the words of Reed Rouse, likes to play pretty soccer. You think about the passing and the technique in the middle. I mean, it's really on full display early at Schellenberger Field, and I mean, that way of playing has been very sustainable throughout the year.
I really think that's a perfect description, right? This team is so fun to watch because you're seeing so much excitement. These guys love playing with each other, and they love getting each other involved. You see the crisp passing. You see the opportunities set up for so many different players. They do a great job of getting everyone incorporated, and it's really made them a dynamic offense in the nation.
Velasquez for Vasquez. Laid out in front for Lopez Correas. Chip downfield. Andres Romero tracking it down. Nearly a collision between him and Arledge. But he sends it out of play. And two Hornets now will check in. Bruno Real Silva in for Andres Romero and Kobe Wilson in place of Chris Wiley.
Joe, we touched on this earlier too, but you're seeing Arledge go almost 20, 30 yards away from that frame, and it's interesting because he's never looked like he's nervous when he's doing so. You just wonder if that's part of the game plan for EMU to get everybody up on that defense.
Well, I'll tell you, I get nervous.
I would too. Especially when you know you got a team like Lynchburg who is not afraid to fire.
Viscuso plays it back for Rouse. Trying to attack the near corner. Lopez Correas got tangled up and committed a penalty. Looked like that was with Mejia Ortega, pardon me.
A little bit of contact there. It almost looked like the turf monster might have jumped out for just a second.
EMU controls at midfield. Wilson applying pressure. Flipped over for Ortiz. Sticks his foot in the ground and turns upfield. Dished out wide. Santisteban played downfield. And this will be a corner kick.
That's an uncharacteristic mistake from Lynchburg, and I think what they were trying to do is maybe bury that throw a little bit deeper and force a throw right in the final inches of the turf. Instead, EMU's going to have a corner, and set pieces are golden opportunities to get back in a game when you're not maintaining that possession stat.
Garcia and Bird, a little bit of a conversation going on in this corner. Now Garcia enters the box. Interesting to see Tohi unattended to. They go far side post. Tohi charges in. A nice contest from Real Silva. Now he's out and running. Real Silva guarded by Tohi. You know, you talk about the size that Lynchburg brings to the table and how especially you see it in that forward midfield line. Tohi on the smaller side, standing at 5'6". I'd ballpark and say 165. But, I mean, this kid has some burners. He's got the wheels.
And that's what you need, right? What's that X factor going to be? And he's been in a spot all season where, if he's allowed to run down that wing, not only is he going to help your offense, but he's going to stop the other attack because there was fresh runway ahead for a moment.
Okay, we've also got the roster right in front of us. Tohi, a $135. So I was 30 off. Maybe if he's soaking wet coming out of the pool. I mean, that might.
Stick to broadcast. We got to go tell all the math teachers.
If it was the Price is Right, I busted. That's no
right.
good.
You didn't go over, though.
No, I went well over. I went 30 over.
Oh, yes, you did. I beg your pardon.
Center of the box. Tipped away. Colby Wilson tracking it down. Pushed out in front for Real Silva. Or Lopez Correas, rather, and he got tangled up and hit the deck hard.
See, in the soccer game, I don't know what's better. Is it overestimating or underestimating on stuff like that? Depends on the position, right? Guess if you have a defender and you say 135, you probably want somebody who's a little bit stronger on that back line.
I couldn't tell you, man. I couldn't tell you last time I was 135.
That's why they're playing the game, though. You got a little bit of variety, right? You need every type of soccer player out there. Us distance runners have the opposite problem. we can't add.
Right now, the physicality is certainly ramping up. You can start to feel the intensity rise on Schellenberger Field right about now. That sense of urgency is only going to pick up more and more as this game moves along.
And do you think EMU kind of sniffs that they need to equalize sooner rather than later? Because, yes, it's the first half, but you can clearly tell, and some of these challenges, going both ways, that this is an important lead going into the halftime huddle.
Played out by Casey. Rivera tries to place it inside. Lynchburg now with a chance to counter. Colby Wilson. Plenty of real estate. Colby Wilson working to his right. Lets it rip off the post. Put it on the woodwork.
That was some killer carpentry for a moment because the way that he set up that shot, he looks outside, looks towards the midfield, and he says, let's just let one rip. And inches away from goal number 2.
Yeah, beautiful job by our camera crew. I mean, we had to look right down the line, and he set that one up on a beautiful line. I mean, 2 inches? 2 inches is a lot in this game.
Quick takeaway from the Hornets. Colby Wilson through the legs. Isaac Cruz! 2 goal scorers, 2 freshmen, and the Hornets lead by a pair.
Well, 2 goals is a lot in this game as well, and the Hornets will congregate with a little extra celebration because EMU, as they started to sniff that they could still be in this fight, is suffering a big-time jab here in this first half.
Isaac Cruz with his first goal since October 4th. And it comes at a big time in this contest. I talked to Cruz a couple of weeks ago, and he told me, when I first got here, I'm not going to lie to you, this game moves really fast. And it's a big difference for playing in high school to move into the ODAC. But I feel like I've gotten a lot more confident there, and I feel like I'm really starting to build that foundation. That looks even more so evident tonight as he tabs his first career playoff goal. And how about Colby Wilson letting it go 5-hole right through the legs? Nobody was home. Isaac Cruz answers the door. Hello.
What a possession. I mean, like you said, Eastern Mennonite, they start to get something going. They have a couple of corner kicks that they have an opportunity to capitalize on. Couldn't get anything going, even the throw-in. So time to set something up offensively. That gets extinguished so fast. That's just how quick this Lynchburg team likes to play, and it shows how fast they can strike as well. I just can't get over the beautiful Meg from Colby Wilson.
And it all started with that defensive pressure from the front line, which is something that we highlighted on EMU's side of the field to start the broadcast, but Lynchburg just with absolute textbook pressure right out of the whistle.
And it happens on a dime because it feels like the Hornets have things materialize so quickly. And we talked about playing pretty soccer. I mean, if that's not pretty soccer, you're going to have to grab your magnifying glass because it has been a very impressive style of work so far from Coach Yeager's squad.
Flawless execution from the Hornets through the first 33 minutes and some change. EMU, you talked about starting to feel that pressure before heading to the intermission to tighten this contest up. Does that now double in your mind? Not even necessarily getting on the scoreboard, but at least getting a shot up.
No doubt. And you have your halftime huddle speech somewhat prepared as a coach. You know it can change at any moment. But it's a little bit of a different fight when you have to get 2 goals back just to tie this game.
EMU has had no room to breathe whatsoever today. Absolutely suffocated by this boa restrictor of a back line.
And for the Royals, you got to feel like you got to get something going to close this half out. When the score was 1-0, you still saw the energy on the sidelines, the passion from the crowd that was wearing that royal blue. Even the players on the field still thought, there's a way in there with some of the pieces they had. Now things get a little bit harder. You got to try to find some momentum in the final 10 of the first.
Now, we'll do a little counterpoint here because this is a team that trailed to Averett and allowed the Cougars to score with 73 in the 73rd minute, and they had an answer, and they responded with 3 goals of their own as Viscuso tries to become the 3rd freshman to score in tonight's affair as Cristobal Massanet and Rodriguez check into the contest for Lynchburg. But this is a team that for such a young core, they have shown they have the adversity and they have the mental strength to come back in late critical games and come out on top.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to say, resilient, and it's so impressive to see such resiliency from such a young team because they haven't been in those spots before. They don't know what it's like in those moments. But, in your first year, you're coming out and you're able to come back and put up 3 goals in 10 minutes. And it's not like that was just some random game. That was the game to get you this berth. That was the game for you to make the playoffs and come play the number 1 seed. So this team, like you said, they have the pedigree to be able to do this. It's just about keeping that energy up.
You got to go down the bullet points, though, because that was 1 goal against Averett, a team that, isn't even playing at this level. And you think about Lynchburg, a team that has been so stout defensively. You look at the defensive stats throughout this year. They've only allowed 8 in 2025, and so even getting 1 can be tricky. You think about 1 more tally for the Hornets, and that might be the ball game.
Di Lorenzo, the team's leading goal scorer, with a cross. Oh, my goodness. Colby Wilson tried to put it in the top left corner.
Was the step ladder from Lowe's or Home Depot? Because he had to go way high to try and reach this one. And if he tucked that away in the upper 90, that's one of the best goals we've seen all season.
And he comes in, whenever he subbed into this game, he came in for Chris Wiley. And you kind of got to wonder where that momentum comes from. He comes in, subs into that midfield, and picks up exactly where Wiley left off. I mean, the energy there. He led to the second goal score there. You saw it with the Meg. He comes back right there and is just inches away from a header. His energy and his ability to play, it's right up there with the best in the country.
And we talk so much about Lynchburg's ability to prevent goals from being scored. And a lot of times you're going to turn to the keeper and say, we have a first-team all-conference player between the pipes in Viscuso. It makes sense. But you look at the saves per game. He's only averaging 2 just because of how flawless this defensive group has been this year. I mean, you look at the shots on goal. There's only been 4 times this season where a squad has gotten 5 or more shots on goal against Lynchburg as Vasquez puts one on the carpet that's scooped up by Arledge. And then even if you just want to go the shots route, there's been 6 games this season where Lynchburg has held their opponent to 2 or less shots. And EMU, when they played in the regular season, only got 4 off on Lynchburg, and none of which were on target.
Was a funny point from Kevin earlier in the broadcast. It's the fact that Lynchburg leads the ODAC in 14 out of the 18 recorded stats. Their worst stat is saves per game, and they might have one of the best keepers. It's just because that's not always on display every game, and you got to make sure Thomas Viscuso stays fresh at this part of the year, because in a few games you're going to see those really tight possession stats where shots can come at any moment.
And more times than not, if you're a team that's averaging 3 or more goals per game, that typically tells you where the ball is for majority of the game. And I think we've had a handful, if that, amount of times where Eastern Mennonite has maintained possession on Lynchburg's half of the field for more than half a minute. I mean, this has been 80% of the contest has been on the left side of the turf.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we get to crack the joke, the crossbar is the goalie's best friend. This season, that hasn't been the case. And the ball hasn't seen much past Viscuso, and I think this year it's safe to say that defensive unit is his best friend.
Isaac Cruz lets it go from far away. Di Lorenzo lets it roll out of play, and Lynchburg will earn yet another corner kick. That'll be number 5.
Lynchburg also earlier in the season, 10 shutouts. I mean, you think about those games and wins, they're dominating their opponents. And so if you can continue that thread like we've seen here in this first half, I mean, that's really going to scare teams in the NCAA tournament.
We talked about the size advantage earlier, especially when it comes to these corner kicks. Lynchburg, they've gotten better and better looks. Let's see what they can do here.
Isaac Cruz approaches. Little too much height on that one. Right idea, wrong execution. But a nice attempt from Cruz nevertheless.
That one went a little bit further into the parking lot. It might be getting a ticket, because we're seeing some of these games throughout the year where, we talk about Lynchburg shooting, and you feel like you got to take those heat check type of shots. And it's rather do it now than in a game, in a week or so.
And to be fair, if he's a half a step earlier on that ball's right on the money.
It's not like we're talking about a bad look. I mean, that was a great look. He had an open net right in front of him from inside the 18. It's a little bit faster getting there. We could be talking about a 3-0 lead for the Hornets, but nonetheless, they're relying on defense at the moment.
And that seems like a good place to be for Lynchburg. You have a whole lot of faith in your defense. We did see Torres exit the contest earlier, and the freshman Vasquez has been an excellent piece for this Lynchburg back line. As we've seen so much depth in the midfield and forward lines for Lynchburg, you don't get to see it as much on the defensive end for the Hornets, just because of how strong that group is, especially playing with one another. But the freshman Vasquez has been as flawless of a substitute you could ask for.
When you have wins like this or leads like this, that can be important too, because like you said, that back 5 or so probably is going to play 90 minutes almost every night across the soccer season. And so you think about getting those guys rest when your offense has done the work up front. That's going to be beneficial in the postseason, because Lynchburg wants to extend it as long as possible.
Simon Yoder enters the contest in place of Elijah Bird at the midfield line. Just over 3 minutes remaining in this first half of action. Lynchburg with a 2-0 advantage. The first goal came via Carlos Andres Romero. The second via Isaac Cruz. A tandem of freshman forwards that have made their mark in the ODAC postseason to kick off the quarterfinal. Rodriguez stripped at midfield. He returns the favor, but a whistle drawn by Kane Kiernan.
And emotion fouls at this point of the year is also going to be really important, because you don't want to have any pointless red cards coming into the equation that would keep you out of another game. Obviously, still a lot of the ODAC tournament left, but you do think about how your chances are impacted by every single little decision now.
Yeah, and I think when you see that, I think that's the coaches, that's what gets under their skin the most. When you see those emotion fouls, especially at this point in the season. At this point, you know what you got to do to win.
Oh my goodness, an own goal. A self-inflicted wound by the Hornets, and EMU cuts the deficit in half. That is the 9th goal they've given up this season.
Well, that'll leave you in your tracks in this Lynchburg back line, as we take a second look. I think obviously a little disjointed, but Benji Velasquez down on the turf, a little frustrated he didn't get a call. You've got to be able to recover as those other defenders.
Off the head of William Casey. And that's the kind of break that EMU needed to catch.
Right when you talk about something like an emotion foul getting under a coach's skin, sets up an opportunity for a mistake like that.
That's where it all began. And now you get the sense that this game has taken a complete 180. That is something that a team, we talked about in the open, the one thing that makes an underdog team so dangerous is hope and belief that you can come away with a victory. And that, the ability to go into the locker room with one goal on the scoreboard without taking a shot, is something that really makes you feel like you have hope.
Has that ever happened in ODAC soccer?
Probably, but not through 44 minutes of action.
Not at all. And that's so impressive because, I mean, this is a team at EMU who obviously, like we said, is struggling to get that possession stat up. But now you just got to beat Lynchburg 1-0 in the second half. I mean, that's a lot more feasible, and especially in a game on Schellenberger where Lynchburg has been overpowering, but it hasn't necessarily been your offense failing. It's just been the fact they haven't had the ball.
Yeah, and we talked about that comeback pedigree that this team has, but now when you give them the momentum, like Joe said, you flip the script going into half. This is going to be another ball club coming out of that halftime break. They're going to be rejuvenated. They're going to have a lot of energy, ready to get after it. Like you said, Gates, only down one. That makes a big difference in the second half.
Ball rolls out of play. That will most likely bring us to a close. Viscuso might try and just send one deep on a hope and a prayer. That feels like this is how we're going to wrap up the first half.
I'm sure he's got a lot of pent-up frustration. I think he's got 120 yards in him.
Well, what an exciting first 45 to kick off the quarterfinal. Lynchburg had a handful of great opportunities to begin this contest, just absolutely pelting Ulrich between the pipes, and eventually the Hornets were able to squeak two through. It was the freshman that found the first one of the day in Andres Romero, then Isaac Cruz followed it up with his second, and the Hornets ultimately scored 3 goals in the first 45, but they head to halftime with a 2-1 advantage. EMU still not able to get a shot up, but they've got a goal on the scoreboard. Evan?
You feel like this is exactly what they needed, gift wrapped under the tree to go into the second half. I think there's going to be a really different discussion now for Lynchburg than there would have been at about the 40-minute mark, and a lot left to unpack.
Well, we'll step aside momentarily. Second half of action coming your way on Flo FC from the Hill City. Kevin. And we welcome you back into the Hill City. An explosive first 45 minutes to get things started. The Hornets with 2 goals. Isaac Cruz netted the second one, but it was an own goal off the head of William Casey. That leaves us with a 2-1 score through the first 45. And if you take a look at the numbers, it is one of the most peculiar ones you'll see. 1 goal, 0 shots, 0 on goal, 2 corners, 8 saves for the keeper in Arledge. Meanwhile, Lynchburg has been as explosive as lived up to. This is a team that's already hit their marks in terms of averages for shots and shots on goal and corners. Meanwhile, they find themselves in a nail-biter after a errant header off the set piece from EMU.
Feels like the 1 is up in the attic of the stat sheet because you don't typically see a number like that isn't assisted by the other stats on your screen. And so you feel like if you're EMU, it's almost destiny to be in this spot. You got that goal by a gift, and now you got to go out there and take advantage of this opportunity, whereas Lynchburg's probably a little more fired up going into the second 45.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at the second half stats. Lynchburg, 17 total shots, 10 of them on target. They've had 5 corners, and they're dominating possession 70-30. This feels like a game that we've seen Lynchburg play over and over again this season. Normally by this point, it's a 3 or 4 goal lead. For EMU, you got to feel great that you're in a 2-1 game against the number 1 seed in the conference right now.
This will be very interesting to see how each of these sides showcase adjustments coming into the second half. If you're Lynchburg, you got to feel pretty confident about the brand of ball that you have played thus far. Meanwhile, EMU, you feel great that the deficit has been cut in half, but you don't feel like all the problems have subsided, just still without the ability to get a shot up on the board.
And here's the issue, right? Because if you're this Lynchburg coaching staff, I don't think you can course correct too much, but you do recognize that errors like that own goal are going to be even more costly in the postseason. So how do you make sure this back line is still intact while also reassuring the positives?
Well, I feel like there's a lot of trust back there. We've harped all year about how that's such the veteran group of this team. They've been here and done that. Obviously, that's a mistake you don't want to see from them. But I don't really think there's a lot of coaching points to lecture these guys on. They understand it was a mistake. They understand what they got to do to be better. I think their adjustments are going to show you that here in the second half as well.
Now we started to see that intensity really ramp up towards the latter part of that first half. It'll be interesting to see how the physicality also plays a factor as we move things along. Velasquez, long throw in, center of the box, off the head of Casey. Corralled by the keeper. Flawlessly kept in bounds. Crisp passing and excellent footwork to get it out of trouble over to Ortiz. Now he'll reverse the field. And Lynchburg just continuing to harass the Royals with constant pressure. We've still yet to see EMU maintain possession and record a quality possession on Lynchburg's half of the field.
Yeah, I really feel like that last possession you just saw by the Royals was probably their best of the night. When you look at it, they were able to manage the passing lanes, get it to their teammates, be able to move the ball around just for a second before that pressure caught up to them. But I do want to go to a point that Gates said. I really liked what he said. Just because this is a 2-1 game and you stole the momentum before half, you cannot feel like you can be stagnant here in the second half because there was still a lot going on, that offense that you can clean up to make sure you're still in this game. You got to be able to keep that momentum by making those adjustments to keep your team in this game.
And you don't have the luxury of time either because Lynchburg's defense will make you pay because they turn defense into offense.
Whistle blows it dead, and EMU will take possession. Lynchburg sideline up in arms. Seems like the officials questioning as well.
Take a look at the replay. That's quite a bit of contact. Comes across the midsection, really just goes and lays him down.
I think that was a right correction from this officiating crew. They've done an excellent job tonight in this match.
You know, when you're not talking about them, that's when they're doing a good job and just keeping it consistent.
Yeah, I think with the intensity and the physicality that we kind of come to expect with postseason soccer, they've done a really good job of managing what these teams can and can't do.
Pask with a chip. The header from Viscuso punched away by Ulrich. What a phenomenal performance he's put on tonight.
Everybody on this EMU bench running their hands through their hair saying, how did he get to that one? It was a one-handed save.
Another set-piece opportunity for the Hornets, extinguished by Eastern Mennonite. 10 saves tonight for the senior keeper. Arledge has done everything and some.
We mentioned the subplot of trying to make sure he keeps his career alive. Well, if EMU can pull this one out, it's going to be a Superman performance in between the pipes.
There you see head coach Justin Carey on the sideline for EMU, trying to inspire his squad and keep this season moving along. We mentioned what he has meant for this program as they have just gotten better and better with time. And you've really got the tale of two coaches for Lynchburg, a veteran in Chris Yeager, looking for his 10th ODAC title this season. And you got to feel like this is one of those seasons where he has a whole lot of faith in his group. But nothing is given, especially in the sport of soccer, which can be one of the less forgiving sports, where you can play your best brand of ball and still exit with a loss.
There's not a lot of scoring involved, and sometimes that's why this game is so unfair, because a 0-0 draw could feature, like we've seen in the past, a big-time shot disparity, and so it just comes down to capitalizing on your chances.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, you see those play out. We saw it on the women's side earlier this year with Lynchburg and Virginia Wesleyan. One team left feeling like they had won the game. The other one felt like they had left quite a few opportunities out there. So I think, like you said, those opportunities, they don't come often. So when they do, you got to be able to capitalize to make sure you're taking advantage of your opportunity, especially in the postseason.
Now this is where EMU capitalized in the first half. A set piece from a very similar spot on the field. As you take another look at the physical contact that resulted to the whistle. This is an EMU sideline that's getting louder and louder as this game progresses. They understand the moment. Off the head of Viscuso. Trying to keep it away from his older brother. Reed Rouse with an excellent clearance. Tohi plays it out wide. Pask defending. All over him like bark on a tree. This has been the longest EMU possession on Lynchburg's half of the field, but it was short-lived. A turnover from the Royals.
2 words, unforced errors, and those are the ones that will really kill you, especially in a second half. You're trying to build momentum and just hold possession in the midfield.
I've got 2 words for you, Evan. Lynchburg, Eastern Mennonite, must-see TV.
Okay, we got the NBA references back. I love it. It has been must-see, especially at the end of that first half. I'll tell you, that might be one of the trivia question types of scenarios to say, hey, a team has 1 goal and no shots. Tell us how it happened.
Here comes Tohi. Driving to the left. Rouse. Puts it out of the box. Andres Romero fighting for possession with Torres. The Royals win the battle. And another unforced error from EMU as Elijah Bird kicks it out of play.
I really think, the Royals had a deep conversation because you can see a lot of these adjustments coming out of the halftime break. They've actually had quite a few chances at possession. It's just the unforced errors. It's not necessarily anything outside of the pressure that Lynchburg's doing. The pressure causes a bunch of those errors. But if you're Eastern Mennonite, slowing things down, it's worked out for you just a little bit as far as controlling the possession.
Lynchburg driving along the baseline, the centering feed. Snared by the senior keeper, Arledge.
How long do you wait if you're EMU to even get that shot off? Because we've seen a few attacks where they've been close to inside the box or they're penetrating and they're still trying to get that perfect window of space. I don't think you have that luxury in a game like this. Maybe just take that heat check, force Vescuso to get his gloves out.
Keaton Napier at midfield, a beautiful ball laid out. Evan Pask carving his way, working to his right, and into the chest of Arledge. Take another look at the pass from Keaton Napier, the local kid. With an excellent feed, Lynchburg just can't convert on it.
It didn't even feel like Pask controlled the ball the way he wanted to, because as he chested it up, maybe trying to bring it right down to his feet, but instead he allowed that isolation to get him a little more space.
Make that save number 11 for EMU.
Now, Arledge has been a staple for the Royals in this game. I mean, anytime you go into the half and a team has 10 shots on goal, you'll take what he has done in the performance that he has given you. I think he's been a really good key staple for this defensive unit for the Royals, and he's been a big reason, obviously, while this is only a 1-goal deficit and EMU still has a chance to kind of regain some momentum.
Clean passing from the Hornets. Creates space for Napier. And Tohi rips it away. Torres to the near sideline for Garcia. Double team comes, he gets rid of it. Now EMU looking to attack, but once again just can't get close enough to let one fly. And Lynchburg will settle and wait for numbers.
This is what's so dangerous about Lynchburg. It's when they can maintain possession and almost park the bus. They're constantly looking down the field, but that defense can spend all the time in the world just holding on to the ball, having just 33.5 minutes to play.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good analysis because you see them to the naked eye. It looks like they're just kind of passing around, maybe wasting a little bit of possession, but they're looking for something. They're looking for something on offense to go because it happens so fast. In a matter of seconds, the ball will be from right here on this spot in the back line to the back of the net if you're not careful.
EMU had a great look for some transition right there. Once again, just the small miscues have really hurt the Royals tonight. Those self-inflicted wounds, especially those in the offensive zone. To take another look at the physical contact, we're starting to see more and more whistles as this moves along. Everybody fighting for possession. KC trying to go downfield. He'll set Lynchburg up with great field positioning.
Well, and EMU is no stranger to contact either, because in that Averett game, Averett had 4 yellow cards and late in that match. And you just feel like, as you get into the clutch moments, you're going to need players to go out there and just be a little bit of aggressive, but also a smart aggression, making sure you control it.
Velasquez with the toss. Casey pops it up. Finds its way back outside. Velasquez earns another throw-in.
Joel, I'm going to tell you, you talked about the EMU fans earlier. How about the Hornet fans? The students have piled out onto the track. I'm sure fans can hear a little bit of our crowd mic between the air horn, the clappers, the trombone, the banging on the seats. It's gotten loud here at Shelley.
Another good defensive stand from the Royals. Vasquez. Nobody was home.
When you anticipate that Schellenberger Field's only going to get louder and louder, and that's the reason that Hornets win to end the regular season was so crucial. Maybe not as crucial as EMU's win to get to the tournament, but Lynchburg, of course, can host all the way out if they keep on winning.
Keaton Napier, a shoulder into the chest of Elijah Bird. Lynchburg wanted to go through the middle once again. That's where they found most of their offensive success through the first half. Andres Romero works to his left, dishes. Lopez Correas. And a Hornet turnover. There you get another glimpse of the physicality that's continually and exponentially ramping up. Jan Caesar, the junior forward, checks in for EMU. With possession here. Nice defensive stand from Reed Rouse. You know, we talk so much about this Lynchburg back line, and oftentimes we highlight the two guys in the middle of that mix with Casey and Velasquez, but Reed Rouse along with Torres and Vasquez, some of the best wing backs that you'll see in this conference.
And you just love the aggression that he's gotten here in the last couple of years, because these guys weren't all starters in their freshman season. They had to earn their stripes just like everyone else, and it doesn't necessarily come with the ability to be creative in your first season. But as seniors, you're seeing more and more attacks develop from the back. That's why Lynchburg has found the offensive success.
And you have such a different feel on each part of the outside of that back line. You got a guy like Torres who's got wheels like a wide receiver, and then Reed Rouse, someone that's built like a linebacker. I'll tell you, I've seen him in the weight room before, and it makes you want to put more weight on the bar, the way that guy is pumping iron in the weight room.
No doubt, and it's only gotten better during the off seasons too, because his work ethic has really been tough to match from anybody else in the conference.
Andres Romero with some crafty footwork. The centering feed kicked out of play. I mean, how many times do you think that guy's doing 225 like at the combine? I think he's hitting 12, 15?
Oh, my goodness. I think that might be an understatement. And who knows after collegiate soccer if that only gets better.
There you get another look at the magical footwork from Andres Romero, looking like Houdini, the way he can escape. Pask. Finds a seam. Still in the air. Andres Romero controls. Reed Rouse surveys. Centers. Header from Casey off the chest of Velasquez. He gets tangled up. Bodies hit the floor. Lopez Correa is fighting for possession. Over for Andres Romero. Working to his left. Ball played out wide. A long shot. And a save from Arledge.
That's just an incredible sequence, because the names you're hearing are from every single position around the field. It starts with Velasquez in the middle of the box trying to get the attack finished off, but now Lynchburg has to hurry back.
Yeah, I think Lynchburg does a great job offensively, but I got to give some credit to the Royals defense, and it really started with their effort on the corner kick. It really impressed me in the first half. They were able to keep Lynchburg out of the scoring column and those set pieces, and again, they were kind of causing some chaos. You saw it there. Lynchburg got into an offensive set. The Royals doing a great job recovering and getting possession for themselves.
And gentlemen, we have surpassed the 63rd minute, and we are still awaiting the first EMU shot of the evening.
And doesn't it feel like they have been in this contest just as a result of that goal before the halftime whistle blew. And to have a one-goal disparity right now, Lynchburg has played so much better in the midfield and getting that possession and out-strengthening their opponents, and this game is still not over.
Lynchburg has not played in a game this season where they have held their opponent to a donut in the shot column. The closest they've gotten was one shot allowed against Randolph back on October 1st. Reed Rouse. Andres Romero. Poked away. And possession stays with Eastern Mennonite.
Yeah, Joe, you talk about scoregamis in the NFL. Wonder if that one's ever been done in the ODAC. Seeing a game end with a goal on the board but no shot.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't a first. I think 0 shots alone, it's got to be under a dozen, at least in the last decade. And with 1 goal, great positioning for Andres Romero. This is where he thrives. Crosses over for Rouse. Tried to connect with Pask. Tohe gets a toe on it.
It's a beautiful job by the Royals. I really respect the defensive energy they've come out with. They've been doing a really good job of getting in those passing lanes, not allowing Lynchburg anything easy. You talked about it at the start of the second half. Lynchburg was doing a lot of their damage from the middle, and Eastern Mennonite has done a really good job kind of controlling that third of the field, forcing Lynchburg out wide and disturbing some of those passing lanes.
Napier got tangled up with the ball. Here's Garcia. Rouse trying to force him to the end line. Casey's right there for support. A hope and a prayer of a cross. And a host of substitutions now for the Hornets. Colby Wilson will take the spot of Chris Wiley. Real Silva in place for Andres Romero. And Di Lorenzo subs in for Evan Pask.
And Joe, you don't want to be too critical of that EMU attack, but that's an opportunity that has to go in the box. And you got to make sure that you're finding a way to at least get that shot off because, I mean, you mentioned it's a cross, but it just lingers around, and Lynchburg's defense is going to be after it all night long.
I really just don't think you can undersell how good this team has been in almost every facet of the game. And it's like you do our film study. Is Lynchburg off and running again before the whistle gets blown for offsides? Trying to interrupt my train of thought yet again. That's how fast it happens. You know, we do these breakdowns and these kind of analytical things that try to pinpoint exactly what we can talk about for a team. What can they do? You know, what are they doing good? What can they do better to talk about? Lynchburg doesn't have a lot of the latter. They excel in almost every area. I think that's what makes it so impressive that Eastern Mennonite is still within a goal, considering we're over an hour into this game.
I think the main thing, if you were saying Lynchburg could improve upon, if you're Yeager and you're looking at the stat sheet, you've got 20 shots, 13 of which have been on target, which is a great percentage in that regard. With 2 goals on 13 on target, you'd like that to be a higher percentage. And a lot of that credit needs to go to the keeper.
Yeah, absolutely.
He has made life quite difficult for this Lynchburg attack.
And you talked about him coming in. He was the one senior guy on this Royals defense that had seen this Lynchburg team and how they've kind of evolved over the years. And he's really stepped up to the test tonight.
He has had career highs against the Hornets.
What's the penalty of excellence for the Lynchburg offense, too, because we're sitting over here complaining about the fact there's 2 goals on the board. That's because they're averaging 3. I don't know many clubs in D3 soccer that have averaged 3 throughout the season. And so as the Hornets continue, you know, goes back to that stellar back line and to have allowed 1 goal, you just hope that number doesn't increase.
Last year, he set a career high against Lynchburg with 11 saves. He's already got 12 tonight. Lopez Correas lets it rip. Deflected, recovers, and capitalizes on the rebound. It's the night of the first years. Three first-year players for Lynchburg have recorded the 3 goals for the Hornets.
It's resilience, and it's just clinical in the box because you're not going to have that first blueprint available every single goal of the season, and that's just a rebound where Arledge is already off his line, struggling to get back into position. How do you beat a tough goalkeeper? You get him out of the way, and then you net the goal, and that's a big-time one for the Hornets.
Lopez Correas with his 3rd goal this season. And Lynchburg now with another chance. Di Lorenzo streaking downfield. Cuts it back, looking for Viscuso, and punched out of trouble by Rivera.
I cannot get over how impressive it is, just how fast this Lynchburg team operates. I mean, the goal there, the opportunity that we just saw in front of us, these things happening, like they materialize so fast. You see these possessions that take 2-3 minutes off the clock, well, they're trying to find something, and all of a sudden, it's like a light switch flips, and the ball's in the back of the net. I really think that's what makes things so tough on the defense. Whenever you can sit here and play, 60, 90 seconds of really, really good defense, and you can force Lynchburg to kind of retreat back to their back line to try to set something else up, and then all of a sudden, they're making you pay.
Comes down to the different shapes that they utilize as well, because you constantly see these guys running, and it doesn't matter what part of the field. That's how you're going to operate better as a passing club, and then you see those attackers have a little more freedom.
Velasquez from way downtown. Oh, my goodness. The full body extension from Arledge. It has been a career night for the senior.
Don't think Velasquez is winding up and firing from that far out if he doesn't think he's capable of making the shot. And that was really top-notch material, having to go top shelf for the save. But Lynchburg staying on the doorstep in the attacking third.
Yeah, that was impressive from Velasquez. That's from Curry range. That's from the logo in midfield. And like you said, Gates, not only was it on target, but it had the velocity to make the defense worry.
Viscuso charging in. Nearly deposited it into the top right corner. Trying to go bar down.
See, all of a sudden, this Lynchburg offense is functioning with a little bit of a different volume, because we saw most of the shots early in this match happening from 5 or 10 yards out, a lot of quick passes inside the box. Now they're saying, all right, let's let it fire. We have a 2-goal lead. You get one more, you likely put this game to rest for good.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, we talk about you can sort of feel the urgency. If you want to talk about another sense, you've been able to see it ramp up in the last 5 minutes, especially from the offensive unit. I mean, they have been flying around the field and looking for these opportunities, converting on one and been really close with another one. They're looking to make them pay again.
Rouse surveying. Over for Napier. Swings to the far side of the field. Patient offense from Lynchburg. Right now is when you can start to play keep away just a little bit. But the Hornets showing no signs of wanting to slow down. Kobe Wilson felt like he deserved a whistle that he did not get. You can take another look at the long shot from Velasquez. They have absolutely pelted the keeper tonight. A career-high 12 saves. And counting.
And just looking at the highlights, I mean, those are athletic saves. You sometimes can see a little bit of stat padding in that department when a team is just not scoring or not directing their shots in tough places. Well, today, Lynchburg's done everything.
Yeah, that has certainly not been the case. He's gone full extension a handful of times. Won't have to on this instance as Viscuso shoots it high.
I really think, Lynchburg has shown Arledge a ton of respect with how they've approached him. I mean, you think about the last goal, the shot fake, to get an open goal. They had to get him moving and get him out of the way. The goal before that, you saw the Meg. I mean, they've had to, come up with some crafty approaches and a different style of game plan than they're used to because of how good Arledge has been tonight.
Brilliant touch by Jan Caesar. What a pass too far out in front for Tohi. Leads to another Royal turnover. If you're EMU, now's the time to really ramp up the intensity and try and take possession right back. Lynchburg with no real need for a sense of urgency at this stage in the game.
This is when you love having a stout back line, too, because you can be a little more comfortable and changing the pace, going back to a pedestrian style of play because teams sometimes can't afford that when their defense has struggled throughout the year. You make one wrong pass, all of a sudden the other team's going 100 yards down to score a goal.
Ventura and Garcia back in for EMU. Evan Pask re-enters the affair for Lynchburg. 15 and a half left to be played in the ODAC quarterfinal between the 1 and 8 seed. It has been an excellent night for Lynchburg, aside from what felt like one drastic miscue at the time, an own goal off the head of Will Casey. But all beside that, tonight has been one of the most dominant displays of soccer we've seen from the Hornets in recent memory. The Royals still searching for their first shot of the night. Meanwhile, the first years have led the charge for Lynchburg's offense. Andres Romero, Cruz, the two men that tallied one in the opening 45, and Saul Lopez Correas gave Lynchburg a 2-goal advantage here in the second half.
A benefit, too, of getting those minutes early, getting the lead. You see some of the subs from Lynchburg on the bench right now actually sitting on the track. I think that was probably a coaching instruction to say, hey, rest your legs. Let's make sure you're good to go later in the week because the way this thing is trending, Lynchburg's looking at another ODAC semifinal.
And it has been so many self-inflicted wounds tonight for the Royals. Just when they feel like now's the time you really need to string together a strong possession, it's errors such as that one that can feel so costly. A poor touch that rolls out of play, and Lynchburg earns their 11th corner.
You really want to start to talk about it. It feels like it's go time. It feels like it's crunch time for Eastern Mennonite. But again, you just go back to that game against Averett.
Cruz across the box, rolls out. Di Lorenzo. Lynchburg still fighting to keep it inside the 18. Cruz with a nice poke. Driving through traffic. Uncorks a long shot that ricochets off the body of Ortiz. And I think that right there towards midfield really epitomizes what tonight has been, with Lynchburg just flying around the field. Right there you have a chance for EMU to counterattack, but nobody's home, and you have 3 Hornets around the ball.
And it's effortless, and they're not necessarily putting all these punctuation marks on it. It doesn't have to be the sexiest style of play if you can make it work, and Lynchburg has ultimately found a way to operate at a high level.
Napier for Pask. Finds Rouse over for Wilson. Colby Wilson has it poked away from Ortiz, but once again there's a Hornet around the loose ball every time. Wilson now redirects for Viscuso, reverses the field for DiLorenzo. He wants to take it himself. Now Wilson. Back for Cruz. Cuts to his right. Now it's Pask. Working one-on-one. Little shimmy shake. An opportunity with the left foot, but once again, it's extinguished by Arledge.
Yeah, another great chance for Lynchburg. I mean, Pask showing off the one-on-one capabilities. You don't want to go one-on-one with that man, and that right there is why. But then, only part about that is you got Arledge lurking right there in between the pipes, ready to make you pay on a shot.
Evan Pask trying to go far post just to tick out wide.
That's another one. I mean, it's just so clinical the way that they've been operating today. And Pask, I mean, he's looking to tuck it away in the bottom portion of the goal on the other side. I mean, they're really shooting those shots because they know they can make them. And that's just a product of the goal scoring throughout the season.
And you talked about those four gentlemen sitting on the track. That whole crew has now entered the affair. Wiley, Andres Romero, Massanet, and Lopez Correas. You know, we've done a whole lot of highlights tonight regarding this host of first-year student athletes for EMU, but you also have to factor in those 6 seniors that are playing potentially their final game in the white and royal blue. And Arledge has done a great job of just epitomizing leaving it all on the pitch.
Well, even if this game goes down as a defeat, the fact that they could get there the way they did, those 3 goals in the final 10 minutes, I mean, that's a moment that that will stay with you for a really long time.
Back of the heel for Reed Rouse. He's going to let it fly, and another save for Arledge. Make that save number 14. His previous career high was 11.
I think you got to wonder for Coach Yeager and company, you know, what justifies a good performance in the postseason, because it's not always numbers. It's the feel of the game, and I think even with Lynchburg allowing that 1 goal, you got to feel really satisfied.
Andres Romero off the body of a Royal in the mix. A scrum on the inside. Nevertheless, the Hornets maintain possession. Reed Rouse can control out wide. 9.5 to be played. Pask for Cruz. Right back to Pask. A little give and go action.
I really like that point you bring up, Gates. You're talking about how good this team has played. I mean, outside of the Christmas present of a goal that Lynchburg gift wrapped and handed to Eastern Mennonite, Eastern Mennonite has just been extinguished in all facets tonight. I mean, Lynchburg has done everything almost to perfection outside of just a couple of mental errors. Obviously, the one costly one that we continue to highlight. You continue to clean those things up. This is a team that's poised for a deep run in the NCAA tournament.
You know, it's been so fascinating to see, gentlemen, coming into this season, it didn't feel like there were any question marks surrounding the defense for Lynchburg. After one of the best seasons in program history on the defensive end, bringing back every one of those players, it felt like all the focus was on the offense and all the questions regarding who was going to be that go-to guy. Is it an Evan Pask, a DiLorenzo, a Chris Wiley, and without a doubt, all of those guys stepped up this season and played a very large factor in the offensive success. But it's tough to ignore the first-year production that we've seen is Chris Wiley puts it off the woodwork and into the back of the net. Another Hornet goal right on cue.
Wiley calls ball game, and you feel like Lynchburg, who has had its firepower from the freshmen today, is going to get a statement from one of the vets, and the right side of the post is a little extra friendly to Lynchburg for goal number 4.
Well, earlier you called it the goalkeeper's best friend, and this time around it sides with the forward. Chris Wiley. All right, that's brilliant.
It's impressive.
Yeah, and I feel like if there was if you had a 15-second recap of what Lynchburg soccer has been this season, it would be that entire kind of sequence right there. The defensive stop, get out and run in transition, find your veteran in the midfield, let him go to work. He did exactly that. And you got to feel like that's the nail in the coffin for Lynchburg.
But as we go back to the point right before Wiley rudely interrupted us.
Terrible.
It's a mixture of not only those guys continuing to make progress as individual players, but also the new pieces that you add into this mix with those first years. With Andres Romero, Cruz, Lopez Correas, all guys that it took them a second to really build that foundation. And once they became established pieces in this Lynchburg lineup, this team just flourished like nothing else. You take a look at the beginning of the season where you draw 0-0 with Barry, and you really start to feel like, okay, this could be somewhat similar to the problems that Lynchburg faced towards the beginning of last season, where it was those instances where if you get just one, you feel like you're winning a game, but you always sweated getting that one. And since these gentlemen have continued to make progress forward, and the freshmen and those first years in general established themselves, I mean, this has just been unbelievably explosive. Lynchburg did not agree with that call. It seems to be the right one as we take a look at the tackle from Velasquez.
What's a little extra contact? And, an interesting point. You talk about the attack being so refurbished this year for Lynchburg. That needed to happen because you're losing guys like Benji Velasquez and company next year. And so if this defense doesn't necessarily miss a beat, you're going to have a really complete package, not just for the rest of the season, but the next few years.
Last game against Roanoke, Lynchburg's coaching staff received a yellow card. They do not get one tonight, even though they have been quite vocal at the officiating staff in the last 60 seconds.
I'll tell you what's impressive, Joe, just talking about, pieces fitting and gelling together. And I sound like a broken record talking about how fast Lynchburg has been, but it's worked.
Caesar, upstairs. Viscuso, the first time his name is called tonight, steps up. One shot, one save for the senior keeper, Thomas Viscuso. And it took 83 minutes and some change for the Royals to record their first shot. Tohi with some flashy footwork. Back to Ortiz. Quick ball movement. A shot deflected. EMU fighting for their season. That one looked like it was off a Royal. Nevertheless, EMU maintains possession deep in Lynchburg territory. The throw-in from Darrow. Ball still loose. Ping-ponged around on the interior. Tohi keeps it alive. And Pask kicks it out of play.
I really feel like this is the pace and the energy that EMU has been missing throughout the game. It took them about 80 minutes to find it, but this is their rhythm. This is what they like to do.
Darrow once again. Cruz couldn't locate it. Possessed by Garcia. Trying to run a two-man game. Kicked out of bounds, and Darrow will sprint to the far side of the field to put us back into play with 5 minutes remaining, trailing by 3 goals.
And we haven't even seen the long throws yet from EMU because they haven't gotten this far into territory. And so you just feel like the Royals need to use it any way they can. And now it would have to be a furious surge in the final 5 minutes, of course.
The clock has stopped as Lynchburg is going to bring in a substitution. Keaton Napier in for Will Casey. You now have Will Casey and Velasquez on the sideline for Lynchburg. So most likely, Matthew Viscuso will move to the back line. Caesar's shot deflected. Ball poked out to Cruz. Over for Wiley. He still wants to push. Lopez Correas surveys over for Andres Romero. Lynchburg with a break. A through ball for Evan Pask, taken away by Tohi.
I almost think that ball not only had to be a little bit further, but maybe lofted in the air, because we've seen Arledge a few times throughout this game go well beyond the line. And, you know, if he gets too separated from that frame, Lynchburg might have a 5th and final tally. But we've talked about it throughout this game. You can use that possession stat to your advantage now. Lynchburg won't need a 5th goal. And the confidence that you get with units like this, your secondary or tertiary options, that's really going to help in the postseason if you have injuries or players that aren't in the game for all 90 minutes.
Tertiary?
Yeah, we had to go into the English books for that one. Sorry, partner.
That's
Saturday
an SAT
night.
word. Reed Rouse with a little two-man game. The centering feed. Stolen by Arledge. Just over 3.5 to be played. 3 goals needed from the Royals. Vasquez on the far sideline. Working against Ventura.
What's so interesting about this game is if you go back to the regular season match where Lynchburg won 6-0, they outshot EMU 21-4. So it's an even more vast shot disparity today. Right now, 28-2, but they have fewer goals on the board. You feel like, you know, like we said earlier, if anything could be harped on, it would be that. But Coach Yeager has to at least feel confident about the fact his team puts on a good performance. You don't fall victim to what happened in that quarterfinal round against Hampton Sydney a few years ago.
The 3rd most shots recorded by the Hornets in a match this season. First against Regent, where they put up 34 shots in a 9-0 victory, and then 30 against Averett, and once again a 9-0 victory. And what's wild is what replaced the previous third was 25 against Roanoke in a 1-0 victory.
Wow.
So that's just the name of the game. When we talk about how soccer can oftentimes not be forgiving, that's a prime example of it. When you can put up 25 shots, only 10 of which were on goal, but tonight they just absolutely harassed the keeper, and a grand total of 18 on target. That's going to make life difficult for any keeper. Another group substitution. Audie Shaver, Chris Bovo, Bruno Real Silva, and Fisher Daniel in for Lynchburg. Pask, Rouse, Wiley, and Andres Romero to the sideline. 1:34 to go, and seems like this one is all but finished. Lynchburg, it will advance to the ODAC semifinal. A date with the Bridgewater Eagles, one of the few ODAC schools they did not see in the regular seaon a Bridgewater team that really came out of the woods this year. They were not projected to finish where they did at the start of the season. And now they find themselves in an ODAC semifinal. Gentlemen, how do you feel like those two teams will match up?
I love the fact that Lynchburg has been established throughout this season, because we talk about Bridgewater almost being the newcomers into the standings, and it's so much tougher to go into the postseason and find those wins at the big spots, whereas Lynchburg, they've been here year after year, not only in the ODAC tournament, but also hosting here on Schellenberger.
Arledge at midfield. They talked about him getting 30 yards out, making everybody hold their breath. How about that? Bridgewater started the season 8th in the ODAC preseason poll. They were one spot above EMU, who was slotted at 9th. And they have just done everything and some, and took down Virginia Wesleyan tonight, who was 3rd in the ODAC preseason poll to begin the season. This is a team that is the epitome of dangerous.
Yeah, I love the fact that Lynchburg and Bridgewater haven't played this season. It's going to add that element of uncertainty. Both of these teams, they know what to expect with playing each other, but you don't know what to expect with this season. You haven't seen each other yet. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I really think, like you said, Bridgewater, they played spoiler on quite a few teams this year. Lynchburg's going to have to come out with their best game.
And you've gotten a little bit of everything from Bridgewater this year when they tie with a squad like EMU and then defeat Hampton-Sydney 1-0. But tonight it was all about the Hornets. 28 total shots, 18 of which were on goal. 2 goals in the first 45, along with an own goal that kept the Royals in this contest. But eventually, Chris Wiley off the woodwork extended the Lynchburg lead. And from there, it was all but written. Viscuso just tested one time tonight. He was 1 for 1 between the pipes. Gentlemen, what a ball game.
You get tested in a lot of departments, but you never waver if you're Lynchburg. And, of course, there is that own goal. Okay, we'll go look at that in film. But if that's the only wrinkle you have to correct for these next few games, you feel like you're in a good spot. And I think Coach Yeager understands this group so much, having so many veterans. And, when you see that back line just having fun, playing with emotion in the ODAC quarterfinal, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, and I feel like, walking away with a 4-1 win, but also noticing that there are some things that you can correct. That's probably the best feeling in sports. You didn't have your best game. You didn't play a perfect game, but you still come out in dominant fashion, and you're advancing to the semifinals. For Lynchburg, this is a team that if they clean up some of those things, the route runs through Schellenberger.
Well, that's all we have in store tonight. Another flawless performance from the Lynchburg Hornets. That defense did what it does best in just limiting their opponent's offense. The Hornets have only allowed an opposing team multiple goals twice this season. 10 shutouts as well. The clean sheets continue to rack up. None tonight after the own goal, but nevertheless, the Hornets more focused on the result. From Joe Brennan, Evan Gates, Kevin Esther, and our whole production group, a big thank you to Manu, Evan, Ethan, JP, Grayson, Riley, and everybody involved. And Vito, thank you, Ethan. A big crew on hands tonight, as it'll be the rest of the year. We appreciate you spending your Saturday night with us. Until next week, thank you so much, and have a good one.